everyone, this is Miss H. This week we will be going over the human impact on natural biological processes as an intro to the multidisciplinary unit that we're going to be doing this week about cars. And so that's what this video is going to focus on. After this video, you should be able to explain how the carbon cycle and the greenhouse effect have been disrupted by human activity, and this is going to help prepare you for the assignments that we're doing this week within your groups. So as you watch this video, please make sure that you're taking notes within your science notebook and be prepared to complete the quiz that's going to be done via Google Forms and also listed in Google Classroom. So let's go ahead and get started. I have the objective listed for you there, and then also the standards. I know all of you guys can read those. I'm going to let you guys go ahead and read through those. And then we have our essential question. What are the true costs of cars? Throughout this week, you will work in groups as well as different academic disciplines to answer this question. And then we have some other key questions, such as why is CO2 essential for our environment and what happens when there's too much of it? And then also, how does an increase in CO2 emissions negatively impact our environment? So before we get officially started with the actual direct instruction part of this video, I want you to first think about your dream car and the kind of footprint that you will be leaving when you own your dream car one day. And so in that, I want you to think of these kinds of questions. Is this car fast? Does it get good gas mileage? Is it able to tow? Is it going to have four-wheel drive? Can it carry a lot of passengers? Those kinds of questions. Once you have thought of your dream car, I want you to pause this video and then I want you to fill out the KWL chart provided to you in Google Classroom. I want you to fill out the K column with everything that you already know about your dream car. Then in the W column, fill out everything that you want to know about the car, such as miles per gallon, cost of the car, registration, insurance, that kind of stuff. And then come back to watch the rest of the video once you have this done. Alright, so you should have filled out the K and W columns within your KWL chart. So I'm going to tell you what my dream car is. See that truck on the left? That's my dream truck. However, there is something that's keeping me from buying it aside from just how expensive it is, and that is because of its carbon footprint. So we have discussed carbon footprints before, as when we discussed the carbon footprint of eating a hamburger at your local fast food joint. And so why do we keep bringing up this carbon footprint? Well, it's because CO2 is essential to the environment. And why is it essential? It's because carbon dioxide is an important part of the carbon cycle, photosynthesis, and cellular respiration. So photosynthesis and cellular respiration are actually part of the carbon cycle, and the carbon cycle is a process in which carbon circulates between living organisms and their surroundings. During photosynthesis, the carbon from carbon dioxide is actually used to make carbohydrates. And so this plays a huge factor within the carbon cycle because we have things like plants that are eaten by other animals, and those animals take in that carbon in the form of glucose or so on, and then they actually put out CO2 into the environment or into the atmosphere. So this image right here is actually a great representation of the carbon cycle and how it works. So as you can see up at the top, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is taken in by plants, and that is then used to make carbohydrates that are eaten by animals, and those animals then release CO2 during cellular respiration. But we also have some different parts of this carbon cycle in which carbon is actually stored in the soil during the carbon cycle because of decaying plants, or also because of decaying matter or residues from the animals. And that carbon is then stored in the Earth's surface as fossil fuels, and those fossil fuels are then burned by things like cars, trains, in this picture, a tractor. And then when those fuels are burned, then the carbon is then released into the atmosphere again, and it goes over and over and over again. And just as a review, the carbon isn't only used for carbohydrates. It can also be used for other macromolecules that are essential for life, such as proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids. Some examples of nucleic acids would be DNA or RNA. And then here's another visual representation of the same thing that we were going over with the carbon cycle, just in a little bit different format. I wanted to provide a different one for you guys to see if this one was easier to understand. So carbon dioxide is important for the carbon cycle, but it's also important because it's considered a greenhouse gas. And what that means is that it's a gas that contributes to the greenhouse effect by absorbing infrared radiation. And in other words, it absorbs heat or traps heat within the Earth's atmosphere. So you're probably asking yourself, why would we want to trap heat within our atmosphere? Well, the reason for that, and what CO2 actually does, is it traps the heat from the radiation to warm the Earth's surface. Now, if it wasn't warm here, and we didn't have that heat trapped, if you take a look at this image, it would be about negative 18 degrees Celsius. That is a pretty extreme temperature for here on Earth. Think of being in the ice age again. No one or nothing as far as plants and animal life would be able to survive in those extreme temperatures. So it's very important that we do have that greenhouse effect. However, what you hear about often enough is the enhanced greenhouse effect, and that is where we begin to have an issue. And that enhanced greenhouse effect is actually caused by more greenhouse gas emissions, such as carbon dioxide emissions. So let's discuss the negative effects when there's too much CO2 in our atmosphere. So carbon dioxide, along with other greenhouse gases, are actually released into the environment when fossil fuels are burned. So things like transportation, electricity generation, industry, agriculture, commercial, residential, all of these are releasing greenhouse gas into the environment in some way or another. And this started back in the Industrial Revolution, and since then it has grown exponentially. And so now we are finally starting to feel the effects of all of these greenhouse gases. Well, we need these greenhouse gases here on Earth in order to have the greenhouse effect, and so that heat is trapped so that life on Earth can be here. It has reached a certain level in which not all of that CO2 is actually being used and cycled like it should throughout the carbon cycle. And so this is when we start to see that issue of climate change and global warming. So the increase in the amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere has actually led to global warming. And what global warming is an increase in the temperatures within our atmosphere that have happened due to an increase in the greenhouse effect. And so the reason why this is not such a great thing is that we have things such as coral bleaching happening and ocean acidification. And these things are harmful to our biodiversity. As you can see within this image, we have what's called coral bleaching. And this is actually happening due to the warmer waters within the ocean and the ocean acidification due to the increase in the carbon dioxide within the environment. And so this change in pH can actually cause harm to sea life and can cause a decrease in the biodiversity due to organisms dying off. This dying coral reef is thus in turn decreasing the number of species that the reef can support, and ultimately that is leading to some species extinctions. And another example of this is the melting of the polar ice caps. So due to more heat being absorbed, there's actually the melting of the polar ice caps, which is then in turn changing the ocean salinity, and this is very harmful to sea life as well. And just as a recap, these fossil fuels that are being burned and releasing carbon dioxide into the environment are very harmful because our natural carbon cycle cannot keep up with the amount that we are releasing into the environment. So deforestation, such as taking trees and other plant life away to build roads, to build houses, and so on, this is also contributing to that higher CO2 levels that are in our environment. And if our carbon cycle cannot keep up with it, then that's going to go ahead and trap more gases, which is going to contribute to climate change, and the circle just goes round and round and has many, many effects. So as you can see, as we've discussed, carbon dioxide emissions have a huge effect on our environment. Therefore, over the next week, you're going to be working in small groups to further research the specific effects that cars have on the environment. And so as your first activity within this project, I want you to complete your KWL chart that you started at the beginning of this flipped video by going to this website, fueleconomy.gov. And I want you to do more research about your dream car and fill out the rest of your chart. You can fill out your chart by putting in some research about how the car is manufactured, how car parts are delivered, and so on, and then any of those other questions that you put in your want to know column. And we're going to discuss these findings in our next class session. In addition, please make sure that you complete the online quiz related to this video. It's posted in Google Classroom. And then I'm also going to be posting our Google Slides presentation, the one that I went over in this video, and other links to articles you can use for research, or if you're just more interested in some of these things. All of those are going to be uploaded to Google Classroom for your reference. So I have articles, and then I'm also going to include some videos for you to watch as well. So keep a lookout for all of those, and I look forward to seeing you guys in class tomorrow to discuss your dream car and our carbon footprint.